Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be reviewing this 2003 350z Enthusiast package. So like I just said, this 350z actually has the Enthusiast package from factory. So basically what that means is that it does come slightly different than a normal 350z. It comes included with cruise control, traction control, and actually a limited slip differential in the back. Now for the most part, this car basically is completely stock except for a few modifications here and there. So before I actually get into what makes this car unique, what makes this specific Z unique, I did just want to go over some factory dimensions. So the 2003 350Zs actually came from factory with a length of 169.6 inches, a width of 71.5 inches, a height of 52 inches, and a wheelbase of 104.3 inches. Now this car actually does have a curb weight just under 3,200 pounds, right at 3,197 pounds. One thing I also kind of did want to mention is that this paint is pretty much all factory. Now you saw in the front bumper has been replaced, and that's kind of not painted right now. But this paint color is actually a metallic Le Mans Sunset. There's actually two types of oranges that came with this year 350Zs. One was Le Mans Sunset, which is this one, and one is actually a bright orange, which is kind of like a more brighter, lighter orange that stands out a little bit more. But overall, I really like this paint color. You can kind of see the metal flake, and it looks really good in the sun. So that being said, you can definitely kind of see some chips in the paint here and there, some scratches, stuff like that. And obviously this front bumper that's kind of unpainted right now, that has been replaced recently. But you got to keep in mind that this car is from 2003. I'll tell you guys the mileage on it in a bit when I'm actually in it, you know, taking it for a drive. But it is a daily driver. It's still dailied to this day by the owner, and you know, it is in actually pretty good condition. This car really isn't beat up too much, and you can kind of tell because there's really not any major dents on it from what I can see. So now the wheel setup on this car is actually not stock. Basically what they have on it is Renan CSL 6s. They're 19-inch wheels. Now in the front, they actually have a width of 7 inches, whereas in the back, they actually have a width of 9.5 inches. So there's a little bit more meat in the back, and this is a front engine kind of rear wheel drive car. So you do kind of want that little extra rubber that you can fit in the back. All right, so now I got the hood popped on this thing, and underneath the hood, you can see the 3.5 liter double overhead cam, 4 valve per cylinder, naturally aspirated V6 that comes with this car. Now, I did kind of just want to mention a fun fact before actually going in depth to the engine and the drivetrain. Now, if you're a fan of Zs, you know this already, but actually most people don't even, you know, pick up on it. So the 350Zs are actually named 350Zs because they have the 3.5 liter V6s in them, whereas the 3.7 or the 370Zs, excuse me, actually have the 3.7 liter V6. So I did just kind of want to mention that because some people actually don't even pick up on it. But again, if you're a fan of Zs, you probably know that already, but I did kind of just want to mention that. So this specific engine actually makes 287 brake horsepower at 6,200 RPMs and 274 foot-pounds of torque at 4,800 RPMs. So it's not super fast, but again, you got to keep in mind the curb weight of just under 3,200 pounds. So it definitely is pretty quick, and with the limited slip differential and the whole, you know, front engine rear wheel drive setup, it definitely can be a very fun car. Now, the only real thing that I don't really like about this car is that it actually comes with the 5-speed automatic transmission in it instead of the 6-speed manual. Now, that's just my own personal preference. I know how to drive stick. I really like to drive stick. I feel like it gives me, you know, more control of the vehicle. But the owner, you know, opted to go for the automatic. It's still definitely a very fun car. Now, this specific engine just kind of has the K&N intake on it, and it actually does have a Borla exhaust, so it does sound pretty nice. Now, sometimes these V6s, when they're, you know, completely straight pipe, they sound like a trumpet, but it definitely does not sound like that. It has a good tone. I believe the owner actually doesn't really know because they bought it like this, but I believe it's actually just a kind of like Borla catback system. It does have mufflers on it, so it's not like completely straight piped, and it does have, you know, the stock exhaust manifold and catalytic converter, so it's not super loud, but it definitely has a really nice tone when driving it. So when this 3.5 liter V6 is actually paired with the 5-speed auto transmission, it actually does make pretty impressive miles per gallon numbers. So basically this specific car actually makes 18 miles per gallon during city driving, 24 miles per gallon during highway driving, for basically like a combined average of 20 miles per gallon. All right guys, so before I actually take this Z for a drive, I did just kind of want to briefly talk about the interior. Now, one thing that might not be super desirable for some people is that it has a very small trunk and it doesn't actually have a second row of seats, which honestly, in my opinion, like, I'm fine with that. I have a Mustang, so like my back seats are pretty much useless. So Nissan kind of, you know, did the car enthusiast a favor by kind of just saving space. But again, to like, yeah, I guess you're a normal consumer, I guess you can kind of consider that undesirable. But I really like the seats that actually come in these cars. Now, this is a 2003, so they're definitely older seats. They're kind of, you know, worn out. They have like minor rips here and there, but they're still leather, and they still actually have this kind of bucket design that would definitely hold you really well when taking corners. Now, I'm definitely going to talk about that while I'm taking this thing for a drive. So overall, I know sometimes these interiors do get kind of hated on because Nissan kind of tends to cheap out on their interiors, even with like higher end GTRs and stuff like that. But I did kind of like the overall design. Now, it's not super driver focused, but these gauges right here, which actually look like, I actually don't even know what this gauge is, but kind of oil pressure, and then like the battery, like the volt gauge, they're kind of like more slanted towards you. It's kind of more, a little bit more driver focused. So I do kind of like the just the overall design of it inside. All right guys, so now I'm actually driving this Z, and I did just want to say, I did just kind of want to say that for a car that actually is right under 200,000 miles, it's actually at 194,716 to be exact. So it's basically at 195,000 miles. For something with that high mileage, it pulls really healthy. The engine sounds fine. The transmission shifts really good. It actually, when you're kind of on it, it brings the R's all the way up to like right past like 6,000 RPMs. But when you're just cruising around like this, like it shifts like right over like, I think like right around like 2,200, 2,300 RPMs. So that's kind of where you get those miles per gallon numbers from. But it does, at the same time, it does pull really good, and it does rev really high, and it shifts like rather quick. Like I can kind of floor it, and then it downshifts like right away. There's no like real like half-second delay or anything like that. And another thing too, like for the most part, there's really no steering slop whatsoever. I don't know if the suspension is rebuilt at all or something has been, you know, replaced, but really there's no steering slop whatsoever. It handles bumps really well. It's definitely not a car that like needs struts by any means. But yeah, that being said, there is a little bit of body roll, but for the most part, these seats, like definitely they cup you in place. But yeah, like the 200 plus horsepower, the 200 plus foot-pounds of torque definitely really propel this car very well. And, you know, just sitting at a red light now, it's absolutely quiet. Now, yes, it does have that Borla exhaust on it, but in my opinion, like when it's idling and when you're kind of just driving normal, it's not loud at all, which I think is a pretty good thing. Now, yes, when you step on it, especially when it gets into the higher RPM range, the exhaust kind of, it doesn't open up because there's no baffles in it or anything like that, but it definitely, the engine breathes a lot more with the different intake and the different exhaust. Now, most of the time I would say cold air intakes aren't even worth it, but if you do have an exhaust on your car and either your intake's old or you just kind of want to replace it for something else or get a little bit more engine noise, some people just buy these intakes just for the engine noise. but it does definitely help your car breathe a little bit better. Do I really think that there's a lot of horsepower to be seen from it? No, not necessarily, especially not from like this vehicle. Maybe some vehicles, yes, but for the most part, I wouldn't say, you know, oh yeah, just slap on an exhaust system and slap on a cold air intake and you've got a race car. Like that's not how it works. But it definitely makes the car a lot more fun. And honestly, for the most part, like, I know I kind of said this before, but for a car with this mileage, it doesn't just pull really good, it handles really good, there's no real slop in the steering wheel, and it actually brakes really good too. Now, there's no aftermarket brakes on this, there's not even any drilled or slotted rotors or anything, but it does brake very well. So on that note, that's pretty much just gonna end today's video. I hope you guys like this review. If you have this car or are looking for this car, let me know if I missed anything on it. Let me know what I did good, what I did bad, that sort of thing. If you stuck to the end of this video, definitely be sure to leave a like and subscribe. But as always, thanks for the support, guys. And until the next one, see ya.